All right, it's 9:30 a.m. on the 12th day of February, which is a Thursday morning. We'll bring this special session of Somervell County Commissioners Court to order. Let the record show Jeff Harris, Richard Taylor, Danny Chambers, Chip Johnson, and Wade Bush are all present. There's one item on the agenda today. Discuss, take action on Chapter 381 Economic Development Agreement between Somervell County, Texas, a Texas political subdivision, and Amazon Data Services Incorporated, a Delaware corporation. What I'd like to do, if y'all indulge me, because I don't want to cut into your 30-minute speak time. I know we got about 10 minutes, or 30 minutes, if we can keep each one 10 people, 3 to 5 minutes each. I'll go over a few items. Maybe I can answer some of the questions, dispel some of the rumors, so that don't cut into your 30 minutes. Then we'll get Patrick with the power plant, let him make his presentation. Maybe they'll answer a few more questions. Then we will, after we get through that point, then I will ask for a vote. See if we're going to ask for a vote. We'll ask for a motion. If we get a motion, we'll move forward. If we get a second, then we'll enter into the 30-minute conversation. The rules and decorum of the court is not, I don't want people to think that I just made up this 30 minutes for today. It's what I've used. It's been in way before I got here. In fact, sorry, I'll try not to waste your time. Rules and decorum is voted in before I ever got here, but what it reads, each member of the public who appears before the Commissioner Court should be limited to 5 minutes to make his or her comments. Maximum discussion on any agenda item, regardless of the number of members of the public wishing to address Commissioner's Court on such agenda items, shall be limited to 30 minutes. In the event more than 6 members, which there are, I believe there's 10 or 11 here, would like to address the particular agenda item, time allocated to the members of the public recognized shall be divided equally, which I will let y'all, I can set the timer. We can do the 3 to 5. I'll let you know when you're close. I've always allowed an extra 5, 10, 15 minutes if we need to get through the 10 people that want to speak or ask questions. So let me try to go over some.
Judge?
Yes.
I'd like to request if there's other members of the community, because this is such an important issue, that we allow more than 10 speakers if others feel passion to speak.
Duly noted. If it stays within the time frame, you're on the record. And one other thing I need to note is folks in the overflow in the district courtroom can hear and see us. We cannot hear what they're saying. That might be a good thing. I don't know. But if they have questions, then they will need to come here. If any of these people that are in the room, Tanya Loxon, D. Conrad, Chris Paulson, Bob Miller, Joanne Hobson, Brian Crawford, Joe Caffrey, Sandra Reed, Suzanne Waldron. If any of those people are in the district courtroom, when we get to that point, I'll just need those people to come down here to speak so we can be on the record. All right, let me try to go over, I'm sorry, Joe Cathy. Oh, I know Joe Cathy. Dr. Board, yeah, hospital board. How you doing, Joe?
Hi, Your Honor. How are you?
Danny, excuse me, I know that you had one other person that we didn't know the person's name.
Yes, Suzanne Culver. It's on, or Waldron, yeah. And I'm
Okay.
sorry, I don't know that lady. If she's in here, I apologize. I do not. There you are. Well, I do know you. I just didn't know your last name, did I? All right, well, let me try to dispel some of the rumors that go along with this. Like I said, so we don't cut into your 30 minutes. All right, Amazon, AWS, Data Services have entered into an agreement with the Vistra. The 381 that's presented to the court today is, let's just go over the details. The water used for the cooling of the project data center equipment will be drawn from the water rights already held by the current owner of the property, which is Squaw Valley Reservoir, which will not be groundwater coming out. All of us, I can't speak for the court, I never do, we have all been opposed to any data center that draws groundwater to do the cooling for their process, because there's way too much water that would lower the water level tables for our residents of Somervell County. So we've all stood pretty hard against anything, but these water rights are water rights already owned by Vistra, come from Squaw Valley Reservoir. All right, okay. Hopefully construction, if it were to pass, which we don't know what's going to happen here today, construction would commence on or around January 1st of 2027. Within 120 days of commitments of construction, $2.5 million payment would be made to Somervell County, a one-time community support payment. After that, for a period of 15 years, there would be a $300,000 per substantially completed unit which I believe realistically, 10 is probably realistic because of the terrain being built on. There may be smaller units built later on up to 16. 10 is very realistic, which would be a payment of $3 million to the county per year, per unit. I hope I'm making this clear. No later than December 31st, 2030, create as reported in the company's annual compliance report due on March 31st, 2031, will, until the termination of the agreement, maintain at least 300 full-time positions, minimum employment requirement. Now, for the payment in lieu of taxes, which I'll get to real quick, they are requesting they would pay their property taxes. They would pay 100% of property taxes. If all the requirements and criteria of the agreement were met and were in place, they would be reimbursed 90% of that tax. The county would keep 10% above and beyond the payment made to the county. Now, your question probably is, and it's a great point, why, if it's Vistra's water rights, it's Vistra's property, it's Vistra's electricity, why do we need to get involved at all? Why don't we just let them go ahead and build their process and come on board? Helen, don't take offense what I'm about to say. I'll tell you why. If we do that, we leave way too many variables and way too many unknowns on the table. As you well know, the governor and legislators every 2 years carve into our ad valorem tax. They carve into our business personal property, which is a huge portion of how we finance what we do to provide the services we provide. They also carve into the percentage that we are able to use to raise our no new revenue each year to help us sustain the services we provide. When I first came into office, we had 8% a year that we could use to raise, you were with me, John, we could raise our no new revenue to help us support all the services we provide. The legislators have now lowered that to 3.5%. They have also tried this last legislative session to go to 0 to 2.5%. If they are successful at doing that, the county, for the future courts, need every avenue they can have, revenue streams outside of ad valorem tax, whether that be sales tax, whether that be agreements like we're discussing here today, to help us afford what we've all become accustomed to in Somervell County, what we do provide. So 10% would still be at risk. 10% is what the county would be able to retain out of ad valorem tax. But 90% of that is taken out. That's going to be whatever the legislators and the governor decide to do in 27, 29, and 31. Now, if this agreement were to pass, what this will help do, along with the money coming on board, this will help us gradually, over the time as it's put on tax rolls, lower the tax rate. The tax rate will go down gradually as the new revenue comes on the tax rolls. It will also help us, not the first year, the second year, you'll be able to raise your no new revenue rate slowly, which allows you more money to provide your services. By that way, you're not impacting anyone expensively all at one time. You bring it on gradual, the taxpayers will, taxes will go down, and all of us hate paying property taxes, so don't think I'm against them trying to do away with ad valorem, but they have never gave us a solution to how they backfill the money to provide services that we currently collect our ad valorem tax for. So I'm not trying to pass blame to legislators in Austin. I'm just telling you the facts of how this system works and how we fund it. All right, another thing that Amazon and AWS will do, they'll work with GRISD through STEM programs that will start in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, which science, technology, engineering, math. They will work with the group through high school with the STEM programs. Then after that, they'll work with anybody that's willing and want to on a 2-year degree to help them get their education to also go to work for Amazon, AWS. Now this is where I hope nobody's carrying weapons. If they are, well, anyhow. If you want 2 more power plants and the jobs it brings and the benefits it brings, this is a pathway to get there. If you have more demand for electricity, then you need to be able to generate more electricity. Now this is the last comment I'll make, and I'll shut up and I'll let Patrick take it and run from here, is a lot of the potential candidates this year have been asked, what is your goal for economic growth and economic development? But then at the same time, these folks has asked the current court to vote no, without knowing the whole story or circumstances, vote no against any economic growth as far as this is concerned. We do not have a rail system. We do not have an airport. Our industrial park, every lot is accounted for and allotted. It is full. This is one substantial area we have that we can grow on private property with economic development and growth in Somervell County. All right. Now, hopefully I answered some questions that won't get into y'all's 30 minutes. I wasted 10 minutes of your time. I hope it wasn't a waste. Patrick, if you'll step up to the microphone. I think most everybody knows Patrick Allen.
Thanks,
I'll let
Judge.
you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself and then talk a little bit, introduce the project itself. So thank you for allowing me to say a few words about this project. My name is Patrick Allen. I'm the Director of Performance Improvement and Emergency Preparedness out of Comanche Peak and for the Vistra Fleet. I've worked with everybody on this court and many people in this room because a major part of my job in the emergency preparedness side of things is to make sure that the plant continues safe and reliable operation. But I'm also a proud fighting Tiger and graduate of Glen Rose High School. And like many in this room, I returned back to this area after college and married another Glen Rose graduate and raised our family here today. So I'm a resident of this county.
Is your mic on, Patrick? I just hope the people up there can hear us. Is a little red light on?
No.
Because I know you're soft-spoken.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
I'm out.
Yeah, there you go. I can yell if you want me to.
If you don't mind. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
He's probably gonna have to start over because they couldn't hear out there.
Yeah, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
so Patrick Allen, I'm the Director of Performance Improvement and Emergency Preparedness for the Vistra Fleet at Comanche Peak Nuclear Power Plant. Also a resident of this county, grew up here, went to high school here, married somebody else who went to high school here, and currently reside here, raise my family here. But as my career has grown, I've come to appreciate what Comanche Peak means for our community, the region, and the state of Texas. Reliable, affordable electricity is essential to everyday lives. The electricity we produce at Comanche Peak is not a matter of convenience, but it's a necessity. We take our obligation to serve Texas, rain, shine, or ice, as we had a few weeks ago, as a very critical mission. And as a father, I've come to appreciate the economic stabilities and opportunities Comanche Peak provides for the community and families just like mine. Our plant relies on men and women in skilled trades and operators who are experts in their field. Comanche Peak sustains high skill and long-term careers, and this kind of work helps families get ahead, save for retirement, and send their kids to college. And I'm paying for A&M right now for one of my kids, and it's not cheap, I'll tell you that. I heard a whoop, that's good. All right. Anyone who has lived here for a little while can attest that Comanche Peak is an engine for this area. It's done so much to advance Somervell County's economy. For example, you're probably aware that we bring in about 1,000 contractors every 18 months for our scheduled refueling outages. While working at the plant, these workers stay in our hotels, our RV parks, they eat at our restaurants, and they shop at our local businesses. This dependable influx of workers and money stimulates and sustains our regional economy. So we've all benefited from the fiscal resources the plant provides. Comanche Peak is a significant generator of local tax payments as well, and those dollars are reinvested into essential public services that we all enjoy. I mean, we know we have great schools, we have great first responders, and we have great roads. So we've been neighbors in this community for about 50 years now, and we're going to continue to be good neighbors for years to come. And while I'm passionate about Comanche Peak, I assure you that I would not advocate for something that I truly didn't believe was good for this community. Like I said, I was raised here, I live here. So to be clear, if everything circulating on the internet, on social media about these data centers, our energy grid, and proposal were true, I'd have a lot of concerns too. We recognize that across the country there's a lot of information and speculation being shared about data centers at the national and local level. This is leading our neighbors to raise concerns and ask questions. So that's why I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about Project Spectrum on behalf of Vistra and why it's unlike any other project that's been brought forward so far. So first and foremost, I want to assure you that our plant It's safe operation and reliability is our priority. We're nuclear operators first, so we're going to continue to operate that plant in a
Sorry,
safe.
Patrick, they're asking you to speak a little bit louder.
Wow.
I apologize.
In a safe and reliable manner. There you go. So we're going to continue to operate the plant in a safe and reliable manner. So that's first and foremost in any project, anything we bring to Comanche Peak on our property, we're going to continue to make sure that the plant is okay and we're going to operate it safely. So to give you a bit of background how this specific project came about, for years we explored partnerships for portions of Comanche Peak's 8,500 acre site. Some of those parcels are in Somervell County, some of them are in Hood County because we own property in both counties. But the important distinction to make is that whatever project comes is wholly located, and Judge already mentioned that, on Comanche Peak property that we already own today. So the most important step, though, was selecting the right partner to lease a portion of our land. So as the discussions began, we let them know that any investment had to be specifically tailored to our plant's property, this community, and the state of Texas, and we emphasized the importance of being good neighbors, just as we have for many, many years. After careful consideration and interest from the world's top innovators and operators, we did choose Amazon to be the right partner for Comanche Peak. As the property owner, we've discussed the long-held values regarding sound mitigation, water usage, and design, and we're proud of the site-specific plan that's being proposed. We appreciate concerns regarding water usage by data centers, especially due to the information that's circulating on social media about other tech campuses that are elsewhere in this country. But here are the facts of the tailored approach we've taken here. Vistra has allocated a small portion of Comanche Peak's pre-existing water rights to accommodate Amazon's proposed campus. And by small, I mean less than 3% of our existing water rights. So this means that Amazon will use the water that Vistra already owns and is pulling into Squaw Creek Reservoir. This approach does not require any additional water rights and will not result in greater withdrawals than we're already making from Lake Granbury than is currently allowed by Vistra. So these facts are obviously very critical distinctions from other projects that you may have heard about or seen. We're confident that Comanche Peak's existing water rights are sufficient to continue to ensure the safe operation of Comanche Peak while also servicing this project because additional water capacity that we have maintained throughout the years just in case we had future projects just like this one. Amazon is highly aware of its water allotment and is designing its campus to use even less water than what Comanche Peak will provide from our water rights. Again, we are a nuclear power plant first and foremost, and Amazon is aware and agrees to that in drought or water shortage situations, the nuclear plant needs to always take precedence over the data center. Additionally, the location on our large industrial site ensures distance from residential areas and other businesses. Actually, Comanche Peak will be this data center's closest neighbor. And we'll remain property owners with a vested interest in Amazon's community impact and stewardship on our site and our resources. This partnership between Vistra, an established member in this community since the 1970s, and Amazon presents a rare, once-in-a-generation opportunity. Not all data centers are created equal, and this one should be evaluated on its own merit and what is proposed, not about what's found online about other facilities elsewhere. Moving forward with this proposal will help sustain Comanche Peak's operations for decades to come. So we did begin construction back in the 70s. I think it was, yeah. John was there. And this project boosts our confidence to explore even greater long-term operations, so license extensions. We've already done one license extension, but with this and other things, we can look at license extension out to the 2070s. Vistra is dedicated to providing reliable, affordable power to Texans. We've been making incremental investments to grow our generation capacity in Texas over the last several years, but this agreement with Amazon has given Vistra even greater certainty to make additional investments. And by the end of 2028, the company will have invested nearly $2 billion and added approximately 3,100 megawatts of new generation to the Texas grid since 2020. So as a member of this community, we aim to bring these projects that are appropriate and beneficial to Somervell County. This investment will no doubt be tangible and lasting benefits to our area. I ask all of you to remember this: jobs are dignity, careers are stability, and a stronger Comanche Peak is the foundation for both. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it. And that's one thing I did forget. I had it highlighted and I didn't go over that. The sound is in here. Sound levels not to exceed 65 decibels except during emergencies where diesel generators would be brought on board to help back up the power, but they are also encapsulated in soundproofing rooms. Of course, the diesel has to be vented out of the encapsulated room, but that's only in state emergencies, say that more power is needed, then
Yeah.
data center goes on back up, so on and so forth.
Tight grid conditions.
All right, so what we'll do is if we get a second, we'll move forward into the 30 minutes, and as Chip has requested, we'll try to allow as much time to get through these 10 folks that have asked. Just be very aware when you're talking, please be aware there's other people behind you that want to talk. So please limit yourself to 3 to 5 minutes. I won't try to be rude. I'll remind you when you reach that 3 to 5 minutes, so hopefully we can get everybody involved that wants to be involved. So, this is where I hope they're not carrying weapons. I make the motion to move forward with the Chapter 381 Economic Development Agreement between Somervell County, Texas, the Texas Political Subdivision, and Amazon Data Services Incorporated, a Delaware corporation. I make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Wade Bush. All right. Susan, you were the first that actually called my office, so if you'll come up to the mic, and if you don't mind, speak loud for the people up in the district courtroom.
We'll help you.
Okay,
We'll help you lower the lights.
Yeah, it's stationary, but we'll get it as low as we possibly can. If you don't mind, just speak as loud as you possibly can.
all right, that's gonna be a challenge.
And I'm not going to start a 30-minute timer till you get well into your conversation.
Thank you.
Just be aware there's people behind you, so please limit yourself.
Okay,
3
I
to
got
5
it
minutes.
written out on 3 minutes.
And please speak as loud as you can.
Can they hear me?
I usually get text if they can. I got text when it came to,
Okay, my name is Susan Waldron. I live at 1294 County Road 301A in Somervell County. I'm here to address 2 critical issues. One is regarding the proposed data center. One is the water supply and the reality of promised jobs. Point 1, the math doesn't add up. Now, I know that I just learned that the water rights are already allowed. However, it's still going to be pulling out of our aquifer. And according to the January 4th Texas Reporter Observer, even a mid-sized data center consumes 300 gallons of water.
thank you, Eddie.
A mega center like the one proposed can draw 1 million gallons daily. Texas currently doesn't require operators to disclose the actual consumption, but we know our reality. The Trinity Aquafilter we sit on is the most overtaxed system in the state. To recharge it, the Middle Trinity Groundwater Conservation confirms that only 1.5 to 3% of our rainfall recharges our aquifer. Doing the math. In a year, Texas, in this area, we get 35 inches of rain, and only 0.1 to 1 inch actually goes back into the ground. If we allow the facility to pull millions of water from our aquifer, that only grows about 1 inch a year, we aren't only stretching our resources, we are draining them. My question to the court, what specific enforceable plans are in place for recycling and managing to protect the wells of your constituents? Point 2, job myth. Second, I want to address the long-term economic promise. While construction brings temporary surge, but the permanent reality is a massive, quiet warehouse of server racks and server racks and server racks. I speak from experience. Early in my career with a major computer corporation, before I became a software developer, I worked in the LAN/WAN environment and system support. The reality, server administration is often babysitting hardware. It is a low-level maintenance role, not the high-tech innovation roles that transform a local community. The impact, we are not entering the tech age by hosting the servers. We are simply providing the floor plan and the water and the water. Don't let the tech label cloud fool the fact that this is low employment, high resource consumption of land use. Thank you for listening and for considering the long-term legacy of this decision.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Tanya, if you hit me in the hallway, you hit me second, so how about you come on up? And here again, I'm not being disrespectful, just remember you have people behind you. I have to tell that to every one of you, won't I?
Yeah, well.
I'll remind you. All right, Tanya.
Good morning. My name is Tanya Logston. I am the county chair for the Somervell County Republican Party. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to address this court regarding today's agenda item, the 381 agreement concerning the data center to be situated on Comanche Peak's property within Somervell County. I respectfully recommend withholding abatement for any open loop center until a comprehensive and an enforceable safeguards have been implemented to protect the electrical grid and to ensure responsible water usage. Although it is acknowledged that there are currently approximately 380 to 400 data centers operating throughout our state, there is a lack of available data and long-term studies regarding the projected electricity and water consumption of said facilities. The court recognizes its fiduciary responsibility to safeguard the health and safety of all the residents in Somervell County through its decision-making process. These duties include diligent management and supervision of the county's finite water resources and projected consumptions. When substantial tax abatements are granted to large corporations, local residents and small businesses are often required to assume the greater share of funding for the essential services such as roads, schools, and emergency response teams. Owners of properties not subject to abatements may experience an increased tax burden to offset revenue losses from abated properties, potentially resulting in regressive impacts. Abatement programs often tend to benefit the developer and high-value assets in specific regions rather than providing equitable advantages across the broader community. Furthermore, there is no assurance that the proposed economic development or enhancements in property values will materialize, which can render the foregone tax revenue an inefficient investment. I respectfully submit that the court may be advancing an abatement approval before all necessary considerations have been addressed. I request that this court adjourn this meeting and schedule a true full-on public hearing, allowing all of our community members to have input on the decision that will affect every taxpayer in Somervell County prior to conducting and completing this vote. It is important that each citizen has the opportunity to review the relevant information regarding this abatement, as it will impact forthcoming budgets, potentially alter tax burdens, reduce public funding, and create an uneven market advantage. In closing, I would like to remind each one of you who are in the decision-making position have been elected carrying the R behind your name. With that being said, I would like to remind you of a fundamental principle contained in the Republican Party known as Plank 78. It is titled, "No Corporate Welfare." This provision clearly states opposition to be for us to have any bailouts or subsidies, domestic and foreign, government entities, states and or businesses, both public and private. Our stance aligns with the Texas Constitution's requirement for a fair and uniform taxation, and we oppose preferential treatment or tax breaks for industries and or companies. If this meeting moves forward, I respectfully request that you vote against any abatements proposed today and advocate for a public forum to guarantee that all relevant information is openly shared with the public providing full transparency, as your decision will have a significant impact and implications for a broader community. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tony. You might want to read some of that to our governor too.
Oh, trust
He might ought to understand some of that. All right, D. Conrad. And D, here again, not being disrespectful.
You know me,
Remember,
we're
there's
all right.
people behind you.
You got it. That's why I
You
put
and
a
I
whole
talked
bunch
at
of
least
stuff on
15
paper.
minutes this morning.
There you go. D. Conrad, Glen Rose, Texas. I'm going to ask a question in it so that I can understand the parameters within which we're working. I know that at least one commissioner has signed an NDA. My question is, can you raise your hand if you can talk to us about anything, if you can share with your constituents any questions, if you can answer any questions we have either publicly or privately? Who can do that?
I tell you what, now I need to limit myself. Let me explain right
Boss.
quick on this NDA.
That's why I asked, 'cause I don't know.
Because I wanted somebody to open this up so I could explain this situation, all right? About a year ago, and if I get this wrong, you've been with me through the entire process. About a year ago, a man named Brad Watson, which used to be a PR gentleman and liaison for Vistra, which is now retired, reached out to me. He said he was dealing with a large corporation that wanted to come deal with Vistra and they wanted to talk to elected officials. I said, that's great, that's cool. I said, I'll set up an executive session, everybody can come in, we'll talk as a whole. He said, well, Judge, he said, really they want to meet one-on-one or two-on-one at first before we do an executive session. Would I be willing to sign the NDA? Remember, I didn't have a clue who this group was. I said, I'm willing, but if you do something like that, you know, we'll have to talk to each individual member of the court. Each member will have their own decision to make, but before any decisions are made, as far as any agreement on rebates, it has to be before the entire court in the executive session, and then it has to be in a public forum like this. He understood. Here again, I didn't know who the corporation was. Have you timing me in my 3 minutes?
Oh,
Around,
yeah, I'm being loose with you, you be loose with me.
around
Listen.
July the 18th or so, a group, here again, we didn't know who it was, met with Trey Brown and myself, okay? They laid out who they were, what their intent was. No numbers were discussed, no anticipation of future was discussed. It was what they were dealing with Vistra and what they would like to bring to Somervell County, okay? After they met with Trey and I don't know how it went down. They met with each one of us, the ones that signed, the ones that didn't sign. They met with each one of us one-on-one or two-on-one, however that meeting went, to describe who they were, what they were, and what they wanted to bring to Somervell County. Now, at any time that I was involved in, there was never numbers discussed or anything like that. It was just an introduction process of who they were, what they wanted to do, and how they wanted to move forward. Because I think everybody in this room that was involved that will tell you the truth knows that at every time it was said, listen, when we get down to particulars, the entire court has to be present before we talk about those particulars. But am I correct in what I stated, Trey? Because you've been with me through this whole process.
Yes.
This started last over a year ago, and I think it's around July the 18th when you and I first met with them. And they met with every member. I just don't know how it went down, okay? Because that was none of my business at that time. So I probably wasted my 3 minutes, but anyhow.
No, that's
sorry.
immensely helpful because what I suspect you're going to hear from lots of folks is we want to know what's going on before you vote on something.
Right.
And
Right.
we need to know that you're going to be able to tell us everything. And we don't want a Nancy Pelosi moment of you got to pass the bill to read the bill. That's
it later.
unacceptable,
Right.
right? So I just needed to know kind of the parameters within which we were
I'm
working.
at full. I don't think there's an attorney or a company in here that there's nothing in this agreement that we can't talk about, which becomes public record anyhow. Everybody will have access to it no matter how it goes, whether it be, you know, whether it's voted yes or voted no, whichever. But that's how all that came about. And now you know what was, and there was nothing discussed as far as one-on-one or two-on-one that I know of in our presence discussing any values or agreements or rebates or abates until the entire court was present.
Okay, perfect. That's helpful because what you got in that packet is a lot of questions.
Cool.
And what you're getting from us is a lot of questions because we don't know because nothing's been told to us,
I
right?
understand.
And so it's incumbent upon our representatives to represent us and not an industry. Now, I understand you're in a pickle. Our governor has invited in an industry that, like it or not, is detrimental to every single Texan. my delivery fee already is 50% of my electric bill. And that's right now, our data centers are about 1.8 million households equivalent of electricity usage. The requests that have come to ERCOT, and keep in mind, there's a significant transparency issue, but what's come to ERCOT that they've revealed is the equivalent of 30 million households of electricity is currently requested. Texas has 11 million houses. So data centers would effectively triple the household population demand of electricity. It's a problem, and we're the ones that are paying for it. They're coming to our communities because the other thing that our governor has done is said, come on in, and by the way, feel free to go to communities who are handcuffed and can't do anything to help you. So we're in a quandary, and I understand that you guys are trying to navigate through it. And that's where I can see the benefit of trying to come to an agreement, because it's a way to try to get an industry to do something that they wouldn't otherwise have to do. The problem is we are a rounding error to AWS. Not Amazon, AWS is worth $500 billion. If they don't get a penny of savings from us, they won't even notice it. So the question is, why are they coming to us for an agreement? Because sure, they have a fiduciary responsibility to try that. But the reality is we are now a marketing engine for them. We're now a public relations statement. They now get to talk about how they're working with the community. And I don't know enough about this particular organization yet to know if they are going to or if they aren't going to. I don't know what kind of cooling system they're looking at using. I don't know what kind of electricity tapping they're doing. There's a lot of questions that can see on one end of the spectrum, they can be irreparably damaging to us. On the other end of the spectrum, they may hurt us less. It's going to do harm to us, but sometimes there are times when there's an acceptable amount of that. That's just frankly speaking. But we don't know what that is because it hasn't been disclosed to us. And more importantly, there's no way to hold them to it. So legally, they have a fiduciary responsibility to make the most money for their shareholders. So if they find, and they likely will, that breaking the agreement with us makes more money for them, they kind of have to do it, right? So let's use noise as an example. Noise can sometimes be a proxy for electricity use. So if they ramp up their production, it will likely ramp up their noise. If that noise goes up and it breaks our agreement, well, then they don't get our money from us. Okay, they make more money being noisy than they make not being noisy and getting money from us. So I'm asking AWS to put their money where their mouth is. We can't make them do anything, period. And so legally, they're going to do what they want to do or what we agree to come up to, but there's nothing that beholds them to do that. When I ask them to put their money where their mouth is, it's not the incentives, it's operations. Their money is in operations. And so if we are going to come to an agreement, Jeff Harris and I have talked many times, and he's assured me he would not be giving any incentives to these businesses. And I, up until now, I've been very appreciative of that. I would say I've actually changed a little. If the agreement can ensure that they have operational cessation, should they not meet these requirements, now that's potentially something I could get behind, because that's them actually showing commitment to our community. That's them guaranteeing, not that they may hold to it so that they can get their incentives, but that they absolutely will because they can't operate otherwise. We talk about how there's lots of stuff out on the internet. There's a reason that you have this fear that's happening. It's because this industry works to be non-transparent. The packet that I gave you guys, I'd like to say it's facts. I can't, because they don't put those facts out there. I'd also like to highlight, I created the packet using ChatGPT, which uses AWS, massive agreement that they just made.
Right.
I say that to say I'm not being hypocritical, and I refuse to fall into this bucket of, if you want to use AI, then you have to keep your mouth shut. No, I don't. What I have to say is you need to be a responsible partner, and the way to commit to that is not to say, hey, we promise that we'll do this and you give us something in return. Your commitment from AWS is going to be, if we don't meet this commitment, we will not provide these services. And to those that are making contracts with them, you should be holding them to the same accountability. If they don't meet this commitment, then they have to stop their services. We're going to have to apply pressure in the only way that we can, and as different entities, we're going to have to work together to do that. So what I would ask is, please don't make a vote today, because we don't know anything to be able to advise you on what we want. And you're supposed to do that. So give us time. give us time, answer the questions, perhaps alleviate our fears, because there are some cooling methodologies that use zero to very limited water. Perhaps they're doing that. But give us time and give us all the information. I've given you a ton of questions. I'd love for you to answer and share the answers on our webpage, on the county webpage. But all I'm asking you is give us the information and then represent us, give us the full picture and then represent us. But most importantly, I'm sorry to those that are here. Your industry has done you a terrible disservice by being terrible partners in too many communities so far. So if you're asking me who to believe, it's not going to be AWS. They're going to have to prove their value to us, and they're going to have to prove their commitment, and they're only going to be able to do that through legal, absolute agreements that we can hold them accountable in court if we need to.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
That was pretty good. All right, Chris. And man, here again, I'll be in disrespect. Remember, you've got about 6 more people behind you.
Oh, I know that.
So be aware.
Be a little bit lenient with me, because what I'm gonna
Last time I
talk.
was real lenient with you.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
but here's the deal. I see good things for Patrick. I see good things for the community, but you need to listen to what I'm saying on this.
You bet.
I mean, listen real hard. Chip Jocelyn and I were just up in Hood County, and we entered in a 391 agreement. We're going to enter in a 391 agreement to work with Hood County and Erath County to do the proper things. It gives us more authority against and to understand these data centers. It gives us more oomph. We tried to pass a moratorium the 10th. It didn't pass in Hood County. It passed in Zavala County. They just passed a moratorium on these so they could study them and get regulations. Here's the deal right now. What you're in here today for is that all you're in here for today is a tax abatement. This is an agreement between Comanche Peak and AWS. Comanche Peak is going to sell power to them because they can make more money on a commercial market on a yearly basis than they could in the open market. You see? So Patrick needs to make money year round. Comanche Peak loses money some days, is it not?
There's some days.
There's some days because you operate and you're bidding into an open market. So for him to make money year round means that he can put more money in the plant and keep it here longer for tax dollars. That's not a bad thing. The only bad part about that is we're going to lose 1,100 megawatts off the grid. It's going to go private rather than, it's going to go commercial for AWS rather than out there. AWS is the largest data system in the world. They're probably one of the most wealthy. They're part of Amazon, and they make the most profit for Amazon of anything for their cloud services. So they make a ton of money. They make a ton of money. Now let's talk about one other thing here too. You know, you're talking about making money, Judge. You all want to make money, and I understand
Well,
that.
we want to bring in more money. We're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
making money.
Well,
We want
that's
to
what
bring
I'm
in
saying.
more
Well,
money.
you know, I know, because I attend your meetings. You get 3.5%
Yes.
back. That's it. That's all you can do every year is go up 3.5%. What's our inflation rate? It's a lot higher than that, isn't it? So the county
Benefits.
falls behind all the time on money. Okay? So let me talk about Hood County a minute. So the county's taxes go for education, public safety, and community community infrastructure. Okay? So Patrick's sitting here and he can do something good. I talked to Andrea. They are going to use one of the more modern designs on systems out there. It's a vapor cooling type deal which uses air conditioning and water and different things to save a little bit on water. Now, Patrick, you know this too, is that they're not going to use a lot of water on this system. The only thing they're going to use is surface water from Comanche Peak Lake. The only well they're going to drill is for potable water or for drinking water. And they'll have a wastewater system for them. Now, do they have a 65, 70 decibel agreement at property line? Is that what it is, 65?
Yes, in the contract.
Okay, that's in the 65 in the contract. So that's part of the deal too. So for me, it's pretty much a done deal. You have no teeth to stop this, even if you wanted to. you think they have teeth, they don't right now. So this project is going in whether you like it or not. The only thing you're doing today is voting for a tax abatement. So the reason I looked at all these different things is if you had to have a best case scenario for a data center, this would probably be it, because it's in an area that people really aren't going to see that much. And they're not using much water, and it's surface water that's already available. The only thing that's going to kill you is them taking that megawatt off the grid, because we don't have enough power now. We do not have enough power. Now, why is Amazon here with them? Well, they know that they can get power from Amazon right now. Get power from Vistra right now without going through transmission studies and all the problems that are involved with getting reevaluated with ERCOT right now, because ERCOT's in a bind. They don't know where to get power from. They don't. So going to Vistra assures them of getting power. Because if they went to PUC right now, they might be delayed ERCOT, they may be delayed another 5-6 years. So in saying that, let me go to Hood County here. Hood County has a proposed Amazon project. They had what's the agreement called, that tax agreement number? I forgot, what is it, 381? 381, okay. Sometimes the old hits here.
Does me all the time.
Okay. Under the terms of their agreement, these were finalized terms that Hood County voted down. Now, I'm going to tell you what these agreements were here. It was ranging from 60 to 75% rebate on the property taxes they pay for each individual center building, with incentives lasting up to 20 years for structure. The rebates kick in only after Amazon meets a capital investment of $1 billion by the end of 2028. They scale up progressively, hitting 70% once total investments reach $3 billion, and max out at 75% of the $5 billion mark. Well, this is 1,100 megawatts. This is 1,100 megawatts too, so it's really the same thing. We're talking apples to apples on this. So, in saying so, the community support payments that they were giving were capped at a total of $9 million over the life of the deal, which amounted to only 10% of the rebates. So they were getting basically 65% rebates and giving only 10% back to the community. And noise limits were supposedly limited to 65 dB, or they had to give that rebate back. And but enforcement this was at property lines too, 65 dB at property lines. Is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't know how far that is. So here's the deal. Hood County voted that down. They said no tax abatement. I have been at Hood County meetings. I have spent approximately 27 hours up there in the last 2 months. And I have been working as an advisor with their development committee. I've been talking to commissioners, judge, everything else. Now, I just talked to Dave Eagle this morning. Y'all know him. He's commissioner up there. So Dave Eagle said, every time we went to them, they went to us as each individual commissioners, and approached us and talked to us and kind of split us and did different things. This is his viewpoint, okay? But he said at first they wanted a 90% payback over 40 years. So they wanted 90% of the taxes back, and they worked it to this, and then they still couldn't get things straight with them, so they finally said no. Well, guess what, guys? They're building the project. I'm up there. They already have project plans up there. They need to build, they want to build these data centers, and this is, with or without your abatement, this is going to go. This is going to go. So up there, they said no. Well, they're building the Spectrum Data Center. They have a project approval up there already. They got a roll of prints that's this big. It's approved by Hood County on a conditional approval. So why do you need to do a rebate? You can't change that it's coming here. Nobody can. But if they said no, and you're in an agreement on a 391 agreement with them already, you're in agreement with Hood, Somervell, and Johnson, Hood, Somervell, and Rehoboth County, should you not be doing the same thing?
All right, thank you, Chris. All right, Bob, I see you back here. Mr. Miller, if you come up.
Yeah, y'all have answered most of my questions.
And we're approaching 30, but we're going to go on. We have 4 more behind you, and then I'm sure Chip would like to say something, and I don't know if Amazon would like to say something, and I don't know if Vista wants to say something after that. So go ahead, Bob.
Bob, hang on just a second. I'm going to yield my time to Suze. If she wants to say anything, I have to go for a fossil realm board.
Would you rather be next, Miss Reed?
No.
I'm going to say we'll give you
No,
right now.
I'm listening, and I did not come prepared. I was just asked to speak. I don't need to.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Chris, I'm glad you didn't learn that early on. No, I'm just all right, go ahead, Bob. Thank you, Miss Reed.
I'm Bob Miller. I'm chair of the Somervell County Democratic Party. And I think one thing that I've been hearing here is about the tax abatement, and I believe there is a place for public and private coming together to get things done, but I don't think it's here. I think the tax abatement is an issue that I think most of your constituents are not for. Do we have an estimate of the amount of taxes that the county will get off of this?
That's going to depend on what our legislators do to us as we move forward. It's been, well, I'm not intelligent enough to run down that path. I know it'll be 10% of whatever the decided value is, whatever that decided value becomes, and it will depend on how that's carved out. And I'm not trying to talk in circles like a politician, but that's yet to be determined, the value of each structure and the total value of the total project, which that value will change depending on what legislators do to ad valorem tax and business personal property.
Okay.
And Judge, could I add to that?
You bet.
So I think I've heard numbers from 1 billion up to 2 billion per unit. So if they're doing 18 units,
But you probably ought to stick with 10 realistically.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody, but I'd rather stick with I'd rather be on the low end and say 16, 18, that never happens.
Wherever it is, you
Right.
know, I mean, they proposed 18, and I've never heard them propose 10. I know we've talked
Yeah.
5 or 10 or whatever, but it's somewhere in that range. And I know the structures have, I believe they started out 1 story, but then they became 2 story. So I don't know if this agreement, I've seen examples of this agreement over the last week or so, but I just got the final copy this morning. So I don't know if that's in here or not.
Which is identical to what I gave you
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've had
Right.
other versions of this,
Right.
but I
Okay.
got.
I just don't want them to
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I was throwing
Yeah.
this on you this morning, which I didn't.
No, that's
Okay.
why I qualified.
Okay.
So,
Is there
but
any?
I don't know if it reflects the 2 stories or not. I mean, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
because I know that's changed, so I don't know if the dollar amount reflects that.
Okay. Is there anybody here from AWS?
I'm here. I'm planning on letting you all finish your discussion, and then I'll get up and address all of the comments, and hopefully, it'll address all of the questions and concerns, so. I
Okay.
look forward to it.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Richard, is there any more data centers being contemplated for y'all's site?
For the Comanche Peak, no,
Mhm.
this is the only customer we have right now.
This is the only one? Okay.
On both sides, Hood and Somerville.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, I've heard, this is off the topic, but I've heard word that there are companies who are buying land not in the county for data centers.
Can I address that one?
You bet.
Thank you for that question, because that's a big concern.
Y'all need to time you
That's
too.
problem.
I'm just kidding. Go
I
ahead.
talk awful slow.
You do.
That's a big concern, Bob, that other companies are coming in here looking at farm and ranch land and purchasing, or looking at purchasing properties. And a lot of them happen to be in my precinct. That's why I wanted to address it. I will go on record on a recording right now saying that I am not in favor of these people coming in and taking farm and ranch land and interfering with their neighbors on farm and ranch land and potentially taking water out of our water table. The only thing I'm here today to do is consider one that's not meeting those specifications, if you will. It's not going in and invading a neighbor. You have acreage.
Yeah.
I had acreage that I've sold and don't have anymore. I wouldn't want somebody building that right next to my acreage, and neither do you.
You're right.
The thing that we're talking about today is one that's going into an industrial area already, which makes it easier for me to consider than these others. I don't know where we stand on these others. I know one property that has sold, that I've been told is sold, approximately 400 acres. I've reached out to their CEO. I've had 2 or 3 phone conversations. He won't come talk to me, or he hadn't yet. I've asked him numerous times to come talk to me. He hadn't yet. That company is Black Mountain Energy. I see heads nodding. You've heard that
They've
name.
already bought property.
Yes, they've already
Yeah.
purchased property, and as my understanding, have some others under contract. I'm not taking your time. He won't count it against
Okay.
He's counting it against me.
Okay.
So that's all I
Okay.
had on that. Thank you.
The reason I bring that up is that you're setting a precedent with this first development. Once you give in, it's hard to plug all the holes in the dam, you know? Everybody's gonna want a handout from the commissioner's court. You know, these are very wealthy corporations. Not all of us are that wealthy. So, thank y'all.
Bob. You bet. Appreciate it.
Jeff, you also have the Somervell County power plant that's come in on your district up there behind the Cowboy Church.
Well, that's the one I was,
And Black Mountain.
that's part of that one I was referring to, yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's
You
part
have
of the
two
same
come in.
kind of deal
Yeah.
that I was referring to.
And when you see me on my phone, I'm trying to answer the questions that's coming from up there when I can from the district courtroom, so don't think that
Debbie,
I'm,
can I ask the question of Jeff from a statement he just made?
you bet, you may.
Jeff, you
I
just
won't count
made the
it against you.
statement that your concern is when they're buying up farmland and going to be affecting the neighbors and blah, blah, blah.
That's correct.
From what I understand with the location of this particular data center, there's only a few acres between it, 313 Loop, 313 Straight, which is going to affect a whole lot of your neighbors when it comes to noise and health and safety issues.
I took a tour of that area that's being proposed to build this development on Comanche Peak's property. I've been out there and driven around on it with Patrick, and I've seen that. I've seen the distance that it is away, and this is a lot larger difference than 400 acres sitting next to property owners. This is a lot bigger buffer in my opinion. I'm just giving you my thought
I
and what I've
understand.
seen, Tanya, what I've seen, okay?
And I appreciate your
So, yeah.
opinion, but I live
Yeah.
in that area.
I understand.
And every day when Comanche Peak is out doing their training with their police officers or their security officers, whatever they're called, I can hear the training sitting on my front porch, whether it's 11 p.m. at night, 4 a.m. in the morning, or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So the noise level that's going to be generated from this is going to affect those same neighbors in your precinct, as if it was built next door.
I understand.
All right, who gave up their 3 minutes? No.
Last question.
Yes,
Thank you.
you bet.
You're talking about estimate 10 billion, property value. What is that in tax dollars at a 90-10 split?
If it remains at your current, well, we can do that right quick. Bear with me just a second.
Huh?
100K, I believe. 100,000.
For the county?
There you go. Thank you, Wayne. You're quick with them numbers. You're good with those numbers.
So what are we,
Let's go,
we're giving
let's go
up
bring
nine,
in
we're giving up
10 million
900,000.
value, bring in about $1 million.
So we're giving up 900,000. Basically.
Well, you're forgetting the payment in lieu of taxes that we get plus the 10%. So you're giving that up. So if you have 10, you'll be getting $3 million a year. So you won't be giving that up. All right, let's move on. Joanne Hobson. I believe Miss Hobson, you were there with us last meeting, weren't you?
I was.
I didn't know your name till now. Yeah, how you doing?
I have 2 last names.
If you will please just say who you are and what you are.
Sure. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. My name is Joanne Carcamo. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. My name is Joanne Carcamo Hobson, and I live at 1151 County Road 1009. I'm here today to urge you to vote no on the Chapter 381 agreement with Amazon. We don't have to guess what happens when these massive data centers move in. We can look down the road at Abilene. The AI boom is already creating housing crisis before these projects are even finished. Rent in Abilene has skyrocketed by as much as $1,000 a month, more than it is. These projects bring in thousands of out-of-state or out-of-town workers who need immediate housing, and it is the local families who pay the price. The executive director for the Habitat for Humanity in Abilene is on the record stating that for the first time ever, they are seeing entire families living in homeless camps. People simply cannot afford the artificial inflation these projects drive into the local market. I ask you today, what will this do to the citizens of Glenrose? We are a tight-knit community, but many of our neighbors rent their homes. If we follow Abilene's path, we are essentially signing an eviction notice for our own people. We will be driving them out of our county, or worse, forcing them into homelessness on our streets. The 381 agreement is designed to facilitate finances for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. To break ground on a project of this scale requires massive upfront capital, and let's be clear, Amazon is not hurting for money. Why are we using our local policy to ease the financial burden for one of the wealthiest companies on earth? Especially when the industry will directly harm the affordability and the stability of our community. I am asking you to have the courage to stand with us. Tell them no, not just today, but every step of the way. Our community is prepared to fight at every turn to protect our health and our families. We are a town that prizes our children and our country living. We do not want jobs that come at the cost of turning our home into an industrial wasteland.
Thank you, ma'am. Brian Crawford, I apologize, I don't know Brian Crawford. I know your face, I didn't know your name. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Judge Chambers, Commissioners. Appreciate it, the time this morning. I'm Brian Crawford, 4541 County Road 1008, Glenrose. I would like to preface my remarks by saying that I don't think Somervell County is the place for data centers. I don't think it's a good idea. And frankly, I don't see how it benefits Somervell County or its citizens more than it will be a detriment. When I came in here this morning to this building, I walked down these halls and I saw all these paintings on the wall. They're paintings of the river, children playing in the river and canoeing in the river. I saw businesses, local businesses, their storefronts captured in paintings. I saw farms and ranches. That is the identity of Somervell County, what you see in these paintings when you walk down this hall. I did not see a single painting of Comanche Peak nuclear plant. Now, I do not discount what that business does to our county or for our county. I do not. But it's not the identity of this county. It's kind of like creepy Uncle Jimmy. He's part of the family. He may even hand out $100 bills at Christmas. But he's still a little, no offense, sir.
No offense, Patrick.
He's still a little creepy. even though he's part of the family, we kind of like to keep our distance. What you see out there in those hallways, that's the identity of this county. Now, those were my unprepared remarks. Having said all that, I have a hunch Somervell County or Hood County or both will end up having AWS data center. And I would also like to say I'm all for capitalism, progress, innovation, and companies making money. I'm a firm believer in President Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics theory. I also believe that there's a time and place for companies to receive incentives to grow their business in certain areas, especially when that business will materially contribute to the welfare of the community and not be a detriment to it. However, at some point, companies need to stand on their own. And it's my opinion that Amazon is more than capable of doing just that. To give you some idea, Amazon's market capitalization, or their worth, is $2.25 trillion. Trillion. Amazon Web Services makes up somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion of that worth. Because AWS high profitability and the market dominance, it is a significant, if not the primary driver of Amazon's total value. In the marketplace of cloud computing, AWS is experiencing record financial performance. In the fourth quarter of 2024, Amazon reported a record $20 billion in net income, almost doubling its $10.5 billion in the previous fourth quarter of 2023. They're doing okay. AWS operates over 900 data centers around the world and somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 in the U.S. AWS has been building data centers for 20 years since they first launched their cloud infrastructure in 2006. When it comes to building data centers and successfully operating them for profit, they know what they're doing. That was fairly evident to me when they presented 7 pounds of concept plan to Hood County a couple of weeks ago. They could also afford to send nearly a dozen subject matter experts that just sat around waiting for somebody to ask a question. Does this sound like an organization that needs a handout? I understand you may think you will have some control over their actions if you attach requirements or regulations to their abatements and rebates. But I suggest a company such as Amazon, especially Amazon, can, one, afford to operate at a profit without incentives, and two, can afford to take on any penalties imposed if on the company if they don't comply. I urge this court to refrain from granting rebates or abatements to a company that in no way needs a corporate handout. And I warn that you can't always be sure they will abide with agreements anyway. As it's been said, Judge, Commissioners, you can believe in Allah, but you better tie up your camel. Be responsible and take precautions.
You have another career outside of this career. All right, Joe Cappy, you're the last one on the list here. Lucky me. And for the note, we're into 40-something minutes, okay? For the note.
That include,
duly noted.
That include Commissioner Harris?
Well, no, that's extra 5 minutes. Hang on, yes.
I made your list and cut myself off.
You did.
But you're gonna be shocked by what I have to say if you will let me go for 2 minutes after him.
All right, let's let Joe go, then we'll let you go, then we'll close the public comments so AWS can speak, and Chip, I know he wants to speak, and then before we move forward. Because as you well know, we have a motion second on the table, so that means you get called for a vote no matter what, one way or the other. And we send the votes up, votes down, and we go forward.
I appreciate it, sir.
You bet. All right, Mr. Caddy, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Joe.
Not a problem. Good morning, gentlemen. Real quick, my name is Joe Cathy. I don't live in downtown Nemo. I'm a few miles out in the suburbs of Nemo. But I've been a resident of this county now for almost 20 years. And I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you guys this morning. There's a lot more eloquent individuals that have already spoken to you guys this morning. But I have some questions and a little bit of history. I started a business in 1971. basically two guys, and we're very fortunate. But a couple of lessons that I learned in that is if you're a little guy and you're working with a huge international corporation and they bring you a contract, you better gird your loins because it's written for their benefit and not for yours. Another lesson I learned is if there gets to be a question on that contract, they bring in the 4 or 5 dozen lawyers that they pay every day to be there, and you're taking one out of pocket, and you cannot compete with them. The rules have to be ironclad, and in this particular case, correct me if I'm wrong, the negotiations on the tax abatement and so forth are relatively new. They're only, what, a few months old? So the ability for you as the commissioners to investigate that contract and look at it in depth has been fairly limited, I would guess. And maybe that's unfair.
We've had 3, maybe I said this up front, maybe I didn't, I apologize if I didn't. We've had 3 outside attorneys working with us along with our inside 2 county attorneys. But we've had 1 out of Austin, 1 out of two, Purdue, Brandon, Bruce Medley. We had O'Hanlon out of Austin, and we had Grant Blaze out of Metroplex. Okay, but sorry, we did have 3 outside attorneys, independent of each other, working with us.
And all these guys are experts in this sort of contract.
2 of them definitely are.
Okay.
1, I won't say Grant Blaze is. He does many things across state Texas. Bruce Medley has dealt with this type of deal for like over 30-something years. Mr. O'Hanlon, he's in his 70s. He's dealt with this probably 50 years, but I don't want to speak for him. You know what I'm saying?
So 2 of the attorneys just specialize in contracts of this nature. The third one is a full-time civil attorney.
Okay. If you look at the recommendations that came from these individuals, and I don't know what they are, I would ask you to look at them for an extended period of time. You need to consider whatever decision is reached today, and I feel like there's pressure that you guys feel like you need to have a decision today, but that decision is going to last for decades. Most of you will be out in the pasture. I will probably be buried in the pasture. So all of the individuals that follow us are going to have to live with what you guys do today.
Correct.
I would ask you, and also I think it's kind of like the Twilight Zone. I heard a Democrat and a Republican agree. This is not going to go away if we wait and think about this. It's not going to go away if the public gets to hear more of the details. It's not going to go away. The decision that I would ask you, do we have to have a decision today? What happens if you don't? I would ask you to wait, get more public input. The decision is they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to build this whether we want it or not. The question is how much money do we give away? No matter whether you call it a payment or a reduction of tax, it's still our money. And we need to get the maximum amount that we possibly can. I know the state's going to take a piece of it, but the bigger the number, the more that's left for us. We do not have to make a decision today, and I ask you to very carefully consider that before you vote. Thank you very much.
So I need to add you to this list that you made.
I know, I'm sorry. I really thought that I wasn't going to want to say something.
You know better than that, man.
Pam Streeter. I own Inn on the River, Siders Tavern. I'm going to shock you. I'm actually not opposed to the Amazon data center. I think that if it's going to come, it's going to come, and this is the best possible location for it. I think that the idea and concepts of utilizing Vistra's water, I assume there's some type of recirculating or something that's going to be going on, utilizing the used water from the plant into the Amazon. I assume that they're tapping into the power directly from the plant, and so as long as the plant's keeping up, everything's going to be fine. The noise. So at 65 decibels, consistently day in, day out, that creates medical problems. I have read that Amazon has worked in some locations to bring the decibels at the property lines down to 50. I would encourage us to look at that with them. We also understand that when the diesel engines and the generators kick up, they're loud. They can go up to 100 plus decibels. And while they're soundproofing and this and that might lower it a little bit, that should be where the 65 decibels comes in, is when the generators are running. They don't need our money. They don't. They're going to do this whether we say yes or no. I understand now what you're thinking from the tax, and that as property taxes gets eliminated or lessened at the state level, that the county has to find a way to generate income. I'm not even necessarily opposed to that thought process. But I am standing with Dee on if they don't keep to these lower levels that I'm suggesting you request, that a cease operations goes into effect. Because we have to protect our community and our community's health. And we want to stand strong on this one because the next ones are a lot uglier than anything that Amazon brings to the table. So that's all.
Thank you, Pam. You bet. All right, and now duly noted.
All right.
So, now hang on just a second.
Yeah.
52 minutes, 58 seconds, okay? So
All right.
around 20, all right.
So-
And that was some of me talking, some of Jeff talking. So we're gonna close the public comments at, 10:46 a.m. And if Carson with McKinstry is here, I apologize. We have a construction meeting dealing with the, this building and the golf course at 10:30, but that's all right.
I sent them notice that we'd do.
Did you? Yeah, because I told them that we had this going and they can have this room as soon as we're done. So we close it at 10:46. Sorry, Chris, go ahead, one more time.
I just wanted to know, can we ask questions while she's here?
Absolutely.
That's good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay.
Just be respectful of everybody's time.
Okay.
All right, go ahead,
So,
Andrew.
Judge, Commissioners, first of all, thank you for having me, and to the public that are here, I hope that over time you all will be able to trust the comments that I'm making today, but I completely understand that as of today, I represent a company that you all only probably get deliveries from on a maybe daily basis for some of you, but I am with Amazon Web Services. I've been doing economic development personally for about 20 years. I'm a military spouse. I'm a military spouse, and so I've lived all over the country. I did most recently live in El Paso, Texas for about 5 years. I now live outside of Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington. I say all of that to say we do work, as was already mentioned, in multiple countries around the globe, in multiple states across the United States. And in all of those places, we strive to be good neighbors. I think was mentioned earlier that we have been doing this now for 20 years. A lot of this debate and issue that you're hearing about data centers is new because new people have come to the market. And I think, as was mentioned before, not all of them have been good actors. I can't answer to what everyone in our industry has done, will do in the future, the type of businesses that they run, the developers who come in, the quality of the product that they build. But I can tell you that we set the industry standard. The closed loop systems that people talk about, we invented those systems. Our water systems, since I have been at AWS, have been improved 2 separate times. We are constantly innovating. We are constantly improving. Very similar to the way that a new iPhone comes out every year, we have a new building that comes out just about every year. We aim to look for buildings that reduce sound. We even moved the way that our fans are situated on the buildings to be able to reduce sound emissions, because we hear from people, that is a concern. So when I tell you that everything that we do within our building is customer focused, it's not only customer focused based on the individuals who are renting data and space from us, but it is also done in such a way that it does take into account the people who are working at our facility, that they have to live in our communities and go to your grocery stores and be a part of your community, very similar similar to the way that Vistra is. So when we started talking to Vistra about a year ago, one of the things that came out, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, so they introduced us to both Hood and Somervell counties. And initially they thought, well, a long time ago, Hood County didn't get to take advantage of the Vistra plant. Maybe y'all should start looking there. So we did start talking to commissioners in Hood County, and unfortunately they wouldn't meet with me in executive session, refused to do it. I'd be happy to do that, even told Commissioner Samuelson when I met with them 2 weeks ago that I would be happy to do that. The offer still stands, but they have never taken me up on it. That being said, the agreement that you had talked about, we actually asked to be taken off of the agenda. They didn't vote it down. So I think there's been a lot of confusion about the multiple projects that are being considered in the community, but we've been talking to Vistra about this particular project for well over a year. And so when we came back last July, it was really an introductory meeting. We initially did not have plans to build here in Somervell. Throughout the series of course of events, plans had changed, and I did come to the court and talk to them all together in executive session. One of the first things that they said, frankly, is how can we trust you? And I said, why don't you come out to one of our facilities in Mississippi so that you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. You don't have to worry about whether or not I'm promising that the sound is going to be low, whether or not I'm promising that we're going to be a good neighbor. Go meet with the people in Mississippi. Don't hear it from me. Listen outside of the building. Do whatever you need to do to talk to the local people so that you can understand what I'm saying to you is factual. So on their own dime, they did that. And I will say, I know that there's been some negative comments about that, but to me, if I had an elected official who was willing to go drive 8 hours, 9 hours, to be able to learn more about what was coming to my community on their own dime and at their own time, to me, that's dedication. They didn't do that because they were getting paid or getting some luxury trip. They took care of that on their own. And to me, that says a lot about how serious they were taking this development. I hope they had a good experience when they were there. I don't know 100%, but it seemed like they were pleased with the sound decibels coming from the building. Quite frankly, when I turned my car off, there was a car that drove by when we were trying to listen to the buildings, and the car that drove by was louder than our data centers. So again, this is our first meeting. I know that there's a lot of questions. I know that because the industry has changed so much since the creation of ChatGPT, that there's a lot of misinformation out there about our industry as a whole, and that we don't represent a lot of that, I guess, bad actors that would be in the industry. So with that being said, I'd be happy to take questions.
I've got one.
Yeah.
Comanche Peak has a decommissioning fund.
Okay.
All nuclear plants do. When they reach the end of their lifespan, they're cut up and they go away. It goes back to nature again.
Sure.
I asked you the other day, I
Yeah.
was talking to you, I said, are you taking these away when you leave?
Yeah.
I don't care if it's 50 years or 100 years, does this go away?
Sure. So I don't know what's going to happen in 100 years. And hopefully I'm still here in 50 years. We'll see. But I can tell you that the inside of our buildings is what changes. So I think I talked to you about this, but it's almost like, with a cell phone, the size of the building decreases. Some of our buildings that are operational, that are in Loudoun County, Virginia, that have been there for the entire 20 years, the insides of those buildings change about every 5 to 6 years. So when we do an equipment refresh, it could also mean that some of the equipment, the water technology, things like that could change along with those refreshes. So I'll tell you that our lease with Vistra is 30 years. Is that correct? Yeah. But we build our buildings for a 50-year span. So
here's my question
sure.
for you too. At the end of 50 years, say you are gone, does it go away? And you still haven't answered my question.
Well, right, and I mean, part of that is like, would you ask Vistra what's going to happen to their buildings? Like every, so every, I know. So every.
Let's all be respectful as we walk through this process.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we are not planning on our buildings going anywhere. As long as Vistra is there, our buildings will be there.
Now,
yes.
The other thing is, why is your plans and print still in Hood County on spectrum then if you don't have an agreement with?
So because we weren't sure how things were going to end up going here, to be
You're
honest.
still not sure how
Yeah,
things are
exactly.
gonna go here.
So, I had mentioned being a good neighbor. Those jobs that we had talked about, there probably will actually be more than 300 jobs. On average, we have 50 employees that are at a full-time basis rotating throughout every single one of our buildings. If you could imagine that we're putting several hundred millions of dollars worth of equipment into every building, we're not going to set it and forget it. I think that was the comment that was made. Bitcoin facilities might do that. Unfortunately for us, we definitely don't have that luxury. So there's fire suppressant equipment that is in the building. But beyond that, there's really nothing that's automated. Folks have to be in there taking care of it on a regular basis.
Did you say 600 employees all total, is that correct, Tony?
It could be, it really
But
depends.
That includes remote and local,
No.
is that not?
No. So it's 50 employees per building is the average for our build.
And you're looking at how many buildings?
So there's a couple of different sites that we're looking at. Right now, the test fit's looking at about 10. We could go up to as high as 18, but I'm not sure if they will all fit. So we're still working on the design. We were further along in Hood County, like I had mentioned just a second ago. So the design in Hood County was actually going to be for 21 buildings. So a little bit different topography there, which Commissioner Jocelyn had mentioned that we had to potentially look at going to 2 stories. Now, I don't want to alarm anyone that you're going to have 2-story buildings. There's a difference of 6 inches between our 1-story build and our 2-story build. So it's not significant. And there were 2-story builds at the site that folks looked at in Mississippi. So just so everyone knows that they're not going to be like, any taller or obstructing views. Yeah. Yes.
Good morning. Would you
morning.
please state your name?
I thought I did that at the beginning. I apologize. So it's Andrea Hutchins. I can't believe y'all didn't yell at me. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I had read that the water from Vistra would only satisfy 80% of the
No, ma'am.
water.
Mm-mm. No, so there will be some potable water that we'll need to use for those 50 employees per building. There is a Texas state law where we have to have a certain number of gallons per employee for flushable water, drinkable water, that type of thing. So that will be provided separately. We won't be using Vistra's water rights for that. But for actual coolant, that is coming directly from Vistra's water rights. Yes, ma'am.
Susan, go ahead.
Oh.
Can you tell us how much Amazon, the corporation, has allocated for capital expenditures?
That is a great question that I don't know the answer to.
I read it yesterday.
Yeah.
$18 billion. It's been quite a bit of chatter
Huh.
in the financial community
Mhm.
about how much Amazon has already allocated for capital expenditures. You guys don't need our money.
Allocated for which capital expenditures?
Just general capital expenditure budget.
Okay. I had not read that number, so I shared my email address with a couple of people. I'm happy to share it with you and talk to you offline about what it is that you're reading.
I'm being asked to repeat the question for the folks in the district courtroom. If the question was how much money Amazon, AWS had allocated for the project.
Capital expenditures this year.
All right. I know they heard Andrew's answer,
Sure.
but they didn't hear the question. All right, Miss. I think Tanya actually had her hand up before you three, so let's go with Tanya.
Just a clarification, she stated that that several of you traveled out on your own dime. Was that not a reimbursed adventure? That's the first thing.
I didn't go, so you have to ask the ones that did.
So it wouldn't have been on their own dime, it would have been on the taxpayers' dime that you went because it was a reimbursed trip.
Some of it was reimbursed, some of it was my own dime. I'll speak for myself.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is, why is it so important to have these NDAs? Because that limits the transparency for the greater public, which is what has caused what, y'all can call it misinformation, you can call it whatever you want. But because of the NDAs that you either required or
Yeah.
requested
So-
our commissioners to sign.
I don't know if that was done before my time, but I did not ask for
That was actually
NDAs. Yeah.
Mr. Brad Watson is the one that reached out to me about that and asked me if I was willing to do that to meet with this group. That was Brad Watson with Vistra that asked me that. He's since retired.
And my assumption for that is because we did not have a deal with Vistra at the time. That's why I'm assuming that. So I think Vistra had some real sensitivities around inviting us to the community and then us potentially not coming. Yeah, that's what I think.
All right, Mr. Crawford, and I apologize, I don't know your name, but I'll get to you very short. And I believe it's Mr. Crawford, is that right?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Judge. So does AWS fall under what's known as critical infrastructure or national critical infrastructure, and then have some sort of Department of Homeland Security regulations that it must comply with?
So that is a good question that I don't know the answer to, but I can tell you that we do have some data centers that are contracted through the federal government that have three-letter agency names associated with them that may very well be part of critical infrastructure. We have one in Texas that I'm familiar with, but I know that we have multiple across the state. And real quick before you get to your second part of the question, because I can tell you have another part, there was some comment made earlier about, connection with the grid and how exactly that works if we're taking power off the grid. One of the things that I want folks to be aware of is that when the storm happened a couple of weeks ago, we got a letter from ERCOT asking us to go on to backup generation. The state of Texas is already using the infrastructure dollars that we are putting into data centers and then the hyperscalers are putting into the grid. We pay our own way completely for the transmission that we are taking. Whether it's in front of the grid, behind the grid, we pay 100%. If there's new generation that has to be built, we pay for that generation. So we are paying our way. But talking about critical infrastructure during storms and during weather events, I do think that the state of Texas is going to be looking to a lot of the companies and the infrastructure that we are putting in place. And I think that's why Governor Abbott has made our industry one of their top 10 most important economic development.
So yes, please, if I may.
You bet, one more.
On that.
You bet.
I guess my concern would be if AWS does contract with, as you mentioned, three-letter
Mhm.
agencies at the national level,
Mhm.
I can foresee some additional requirements coming down that may or may not supersede some of the restrictions that the county puts on an AWS in the form of those rebates or abatements. I don't know if that's very clear or not.
It is clear, and that wouldn't be the case here because this is not a GovCloud facility. So we have specific facilities that when we build them, we already have the contract with the government. We build those facilities to government specifications. This is not a government specified, it's a commercial specified use.
And for now and forever?
I mean, as long as this is democracy, unless the federal government's planning on federalizing things and we haven't been made aware of it.
But you can always set new contracts.
We would not accept a federal, the building is not created for that. So there's different specifications for the buildings that we have that have government contracts.
Okay, so you're not, this is gonna be anything to anybody else but probably me, but for example, you're not building that building to meet ICD 705
No,
requirements?
no, we are not. Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Do you? Sorry.
Yeah,
This
sorry.
lady back here, sorry, I don't know your
Amy
name,
Simon.
and you might better say it loud because the microphone's over here.
What are the future expansion plans at Vistra for Amazon? I have authority that you guys plan to scale in about 5 years.
So we don't plan to scale. So we have a contract for 1.2 gigawatts, and that's what we're planning on building on. If the actual facility ends up expanding, I can't speak to that, but we have no expansion plans. Yeah.
Dee, I believe you had a question. I
Can
thought
you
it was
just
a
speak
report.
to, yeah, can you just speak to water usage and electricity? And so and the reason I ask is, so the assumption is, well, this isn't really a negative impact to us because the water's already set aside, the water's already used, but the reality is, water is water, and if 10 years from now, we need that water because something else dries up, but we can't have that water because it's been allocated to you. So can you just talk, and in gallons, because that's what when I have a toilet that's running, I know how many gallons got
Sure.
wasted, so that just makes a little more sense to us.
Yeah.
Can you talk to, because I know that there's a broad scale of water
Mhm,
usage,
mhm.
so can you talk about y'all's and where it lies in that scale?
Sure. So I know we talked about 3%-ish of Vistra's. So it is actually a little bit closer to 1.8%, I think, from what I've read based on preliminary designs, right? So I can tell you that we're going to be using water about 17% of the year here. And what that means is on days that it reaches above 95 degrees, that up until that point, we rely completely on ambient air to cool the systems. On those days that it reaches above 95, ish degrees, we will be pulling in water that will go through a closed loop system. It's an evaporative cooling system. So in essence, it's going through these tubes and it evaporates, and the evaporation process is what cools our equipment. So it's non-contact. It is not going to actually be touching the elements, if you will, within inside the actual racks themselves. So most of the days of the year that are above 95, what we're finding, it's about 4 to 6 hours per day in Texas. So it ends up coming out to about 27 days per year. So again, it depends on, you know, how hot or cold or whatnot that particular year is. But we're not using water all the time. Very similar, though, to how Vistra has contingency plans for their use for water where they have to keep a certain amount. Our contract to be able to use a certain amount of their water is for our worst case scenario. So just as an example, if we said that our worst case scenario was 10 gallons, then that particular day, we're going to contract 365 days for 10 gallons, even if we're not going to use the full 10 gallons. So the way that our system is, you're going to pull in the water. It's going to go through this system. I know that in different cooling systems, there's, I think, a misnomer that it's used like 6 times. It's not in this type of system. It evaporates and then it's pulled back in, and it evaporates and it's pulled back in. And about 85-ish% of what we end up pulling in is going back out. So we pull in water through a reverse osmosis system. It does get treated with chlorine, and then it gets basically filtered and goes back out. So the water that we're pulling in is basically cleaner than you know what it's coming in as. So the water that is going into the Squaw Creek Reservoir, things like that, is not going to be the brown icky stuff that I've heard folks talk about. It's going to be clean water. Yes.
Well, I can explain this in a little
Sure.
plain terms. I was a chemist for 30 years.
Can you do it in a short, plain term?
It's basically a glorified swamp cooler where you get, for you old timers.
Us country boys can understand that.
Yeah, all you old timers know what that is. That means basically water cools the air on it, but they recover a lot. They run 1% chlorine in it, which is only for bacteria on it. Reverse osmosis, all that is it's like having a filter and you push water through it under pressure and it makes better water on the other side. And then you reject the part that's not good. So you actually have better water going in there, real clean water, and it has no residual when it goes out. So that's a plus. That's a plus, I'll say that.
Thank you, Andrew. And
Let's
hang
get
on
back
just a
to the
second.
main purpose. This is about tax evasion
Sure.
today.
Rebate, right.
Explain to us why we ought to give you a tax evasion.
Sure. So we do have plans to build here. We do have plans to build here, hopefully through a partnership with Vistra. Is a part of that plan, the size of what we build and you know, however long it takes for us to build, a lot of that are business model decisions based on you know, the amount of money that we are investing per building into the CapEx and the compute equipment. Now, we will build the buildings to be low and sound. We will build them to use water efficiently. You all don't have to talk us into doing those things. That being said, it is our desire to be able to take full advantage of the 1.2 gigawatts that Vistra is offering. And in order to do that from a business model perspective, it does make sense for us to be able to capitalize as much as we can. Throughout this process, however, I do want to make sure that I make it clear that when we find that there are, say, roads that need to be repaired, either because of you know, use from you all over 20 years and the road improvement fund has maybe dried up a little bit, but we also need a new road, we will be paying our way for a variety of different things over the coming years, frankly, as we are investing these buildings. We are going to continue to give back through programs like our In Communities program, through our workforce development programs. There's going to be a lot of ways that we are planning on giving back to the community. And frankly, it's a win-win partnership for us if we are able to establish incentives.
And I apologize, I don't know your name, ma'am. You had your hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Sylvia.
Oh, yeah, I do know you. Damn, I'm getting old. Now, go ahead.
Yes, so that was my exact question as well, because in the long run, you've got the water taken care of. It will affect us, you know, whether minimally or you know, the electricity again will, you know, affect us some. But Somervell County residents,
Mhm.
why do you need our money? You have infinity amounts of money.
It's a
You know,
business.
and I understand
Sure.
that, but you don't need it.
So it is part of our business model to be able to maximize the investments that we are making so that as we are making very large multi-billion-dollar investments, these are not tiny campuses. They're often in areas that have very little to no infrastructure. So even though we are going on Vistra's property, like they don't have sewer, there's a lot of things that are missing from those areas. We're going to be building our own roads. And as we build these things, we will build it so that it is a win-win for the community. So ultimately, when we make these investments, we're making them for 30 to 50 plus years. And so it is a business model and really, I mean, it's no different than any other business.
All right, let's go. Let's take a couple more. I see 4. All right, go ahead, sir. I don't know your name. I apologize.
Bill Buchanan, you said you're gonna be giving back to the community. These are big tax abatements. And what I just heard you say is you're gonna go out, fill a few potholes, and do some dog and pony shows with the community. That does not equate to the amount of money that y'all are wanting as abatement.
Sure. Well, and we would not be in business if there was not any profit made by the company at all. So it is our goal to be able to make a profit just like anybody else in this audience who is in business.
Yeah, that's great, but look at the amount, and then what you say you're gonna give back to our community.
Sure.
I don't see an even win-win situation.
50 employees at 18 buildings is nothing.
Well, I do think that the investment that the community will see, even with the abatement, will far surpass your expectations. So at the end of the day, I look at the potentially 300 to potentially 800, 900 employees that could be coming as a part of this.
Sorry,
Yeah.
there's a lady behind you, had her hand up for a while. Go ahead, ma'am.
Dorothy Buchanan.
Mhm.
It appears to me that this commitment or this deal has already been made. There's not a thing that we can do about it, but the only thing that we can is, I think 90% is insane to give them an abatement of taxes.
That's why
It would have been more helpful if we had had a projection with firm numbers, or suspected if we aren't getting this much tax back, we would be getting this amount of money on an ongoing
So
basis.
I did work with the county appraiser
If we, as residents, had that in our hand, because what we're hearing is we're gonna give this mega corporation 90% of our tax money back to them. Why on earth would anybody vote for that?
So, and if I could just say, because I know that there's been a lot of comments about abatements, this is a performance agreement. So it is not an abatement. We pay our taxes 100%, and then there is a rebate given to us. And out of that rebate, there is a per building fee that we are paying back to the court to be able to use at their discretion. So we are not dictating, for that money that we pay per building, how that money gets used. It's my understanding that the judge had, as you all already heard, some concerns, I think, about the ad valorem taxes and the overall budget for the county going up and down. I had mentioned to you that, I've been doing economic development for 20 years. I know that this is a comment that I hear from communities across the board, and I've been on the actual municipal side of economic development. It never seems like it's equal until the company comes in and those jobs that they're paying well above the county median wage for start paying back to the community. That infrastructure that they put in starts paying off for the community. These are long-term partnerships between the corporation and the community. And I know it's hard to see today, but a lot of these investments end up paying off in dividends far beyond what we're talking about today. So overall, I think the comment had been more about the percentage of what this ends up being per building. And so you're looking at about a 60% at the end of the day rebate that we'll end up keeping after those payments are made. So it's almost a 50-50 split.
That's not what we were hearing.
So Wes heard, I don't know if you heard him earlier, he had mentioned that it was approximately $100,000 per $1 billion building. So that's $100,000 already off. And then we pay back the $300,000 community support payment. So that's about 60%. If you can also imagine over time that our business personal property taxes are going to come down significantly because of depreciation. So most of the time it would make the bill fluctuate. The way that the judge has negotiated the agreement, you won't feel that you won't feel that depreciation going across the board. So when I talked to each of the commissioners, and that their concern was basically that the depreciation is going to cause this ripple effect, and it'll be very hard for them to budget. So doing things this way, where there's a minimum payment that is made, I keep hitting this thing, sorry, a minimum payment that is made, it's going to prevent that fluctuation and make it easier for them to budget.
Mr. Bernard, and then, sorry, I don't know your name, sir. We'll get right to you. Let's do Mr. Bernard first, and then you.
How is this going to affect?
I apologize to McKenna Street.
The taxes that are already on the power plant?
So technically, they would go down.
As they gradually come on.
Yeah.
What will happen? I hope I won't be here. Wayne, where'd Wayne go? Did he run out on me? Wayne will be the gentleman that'll work with the courts to make this happen. As the values come on gradually, more value comes on. As you realize, when the values goes up, our tax rate has to go down. So the tax rate will gradually go down. Probably will be in the 20s by 31. Don't hold me to that. I'll be dead or retired or both. But it will affect the tax rate for the average taxpayer. It'll gradually go down. You'll gradually raise your no new revenue rate, which will give you more money to work with to provide services we provide.
Will the power plant pay less now?
Yes.
After
If the tax rates go down, it will affect them too, what they pay. But as they improve and build 2 more power plants, which we hope they do, then we'll bring the value back onto the tax rolls.
Okay.
You know, I keep plugging that.
I understand.
Sorry, sir, I don't know your
I'm
name.
letting him call him.
My name is Charlie Norman. I've been here for 30 years.
I do know that. Man,
Yes, that's
I am
okay.
getting old.
We love it here. We all moved here, and you moved back for a reason.
Yep.
And that reason was because this is such a wonderful place to live, second smallest county in the state of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We like the lifestyle that we have here. The concern I have, and not so much just this project,
Sure.
but is the long-term project. Thank you, commissioners, for being aware of this.
Yes.
We don't want the traffic. We don't want the noise. We don't want the use of our water that most of us, a lot of us, especially in the rural, go down to a certain level for our water. We've been hearing concerns, and I know you've addressed some of those. But you know, Frisco, just think about Frisco 20 and 30 years ago, the way it was. Small little community, and now who would want to live there? Jerry Jones, maybe, I don't know. But think about Granbury. We almost moved to Granbury 30 years ago. I mean, I like Granbury. We had wonderful memories over there. Go to the doctor over there. I don't want to live over there. Right. We live here for a reason, and we came back here for a reason. So I just say to you, you know, we don't want to change our lifestyle. I'm 75. I'm not going to be around, 50 years from now. But we are thinking about our kids and our grandkids. And this is a very unique county. And I know you're here for a reason. You came back for a reason. So I just say to you, in the future kind of things that you're doing, and if you can protect our county and our way of life with proposed good things, maybe this is a good thing, but when you say 18 buildings, I don't know, is that all around there? That's okay.
Yeah, no.
But not just this,
Sure.
this project, but other projects too. So I plead with you to think about those things, because we moved here and we live here for a reason. And we love it here. So I'll leave that to you, and I thank you for that
I think
time.
we've got one more question, Bob, and then we'll come to you. We're gonna move it, because I keep getting questions from up top. Sometimes they can't hear. They heard most of yours. They didn't get all yours. They did hear the Jerry Jones part.
Okay.
All right, Bob, let's take two, and then we'll bring it back to the court.
If you had approached the school district or anybody else for tax abatement?
So no, sir. And I will tell you, unfortunately, it's my understanding that the school system is not going to be able to keep a large portion of the money that they'll end up getting from this. So that is very unfortunate. We will be paying a significant amount of money to them, but it just doesn't sound like they're going to be able to keep it all.
The
So
way the legislators have it set up, a large portion of that will go back to the state, Bob.
yeah.
Currently.
Currently.
Yes.
And and who knows how that's going to work out. All right.
I will tell you though, if it doesn't go back to the state, that we will likely end up paying more than $1 billion in school taxes.
which a huge portion will go to
Yeah.
Mr. Governor. I need to be nice, don't
I
I?
know.
Anyhow, all right, let's, oh, I'm sorry, Susan, one more question, go ahead.
I stand corrected. As of February 5th, Amazon announced that they increased the capital expenditure from 131 billion to 200 billion, and most of that's going to go to AWS.
That's what, I'm trying to say this for the people up top. What she's saying is,
The capital expenditures, Amazon just announced this February 5th.
okay,
It's going from 131 billion to 200 billion, and most of that is scheduled for AWS.
what's being said is the capital expenditure is going from 130 billion to 200 billion, which would be basically spent on AWS.
Which
All
which
right.
basically
And
means
there's
we're
some
spending a
tax
lot of very
benefits,
expensive money in a lot of different places. So for y'all's awareness too, I know I had mentioned some of the things about AI kind of changing the industry. If you could imagine right now, and I shared this with Mr. Paulson yesterday, so we have been doing this for 20 years, as was already discussed. Only 20% of all the data that exists right now is in the cloud. So if you could imagine all these servers that are in different buildings that are running hot, that are taking up tons of electricity individually, running way hotter than our data centers do. Not only is it efficient, it's dangerous. There's security issues. Your building burns down, all of your data goes with it. If you could imagine that as all of this data comes onto the cloud, and then because of ChatGPT and AI, there's this whole other industry, frankly, of data storage that didn't even exist 4 years ago. So we are still trying to catch up from that extra 80% of data that still needs to be digitized. I was mentioning to somebody the other day, we got contacted from a state who wants to have all 38 of their state agencies go online. That's going to require data centers. Your hospital visits that are electronic, like all of the things that are happening on your cell phone through apps, your ability to do things through banking. I mean, I know that most of you know these things, but when we talk about the amount of money that we're investing, it is actually going to be a small component of what needs to be invested in order to be able to get all of the things onto the cloud that folks want to be able to access very quickly. So as an industry, I think you're going to continue to see these things changing. I had mentioned before that our water infrastructure has changed twice. I mentioned that our building sizes have changed. We are actually able to fit more compute power in a smaller building, and we'll hopefully continue to be able to do that year over year. So as our footprints, I guess maybe increase across the country, our technology improves in our cell phones and in our servers and racks. I think we will be able to utilize some of our existing infrastructure to be able to put more cloud compute in existing buildings rather than continue to look for new. Unfortunately, not enough exists right now, so we are continuing to have to build.
My point was, you've been able to allocate approximately $70 billion more. Surely you don't need all these things.
Yeah, so
All right.
every individual project does have its own business model, if that makes sense. So
let's bring it back to the court. I know Chip is chomping at the bits that he'd like to get his 2 cents in before we actually call for a vote. So Chip,
Well,
we move the camera so the people up top can see you, I hope, and hear you.
60-40 is not an even split, so I just want to,
understood.
but I'm better at math than that. But what I did find out, actually this morning was confirmed. I went with Jeff as well and toured with Patrick. I've been wanting some type of site plan.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have I asked you for that?
You have, and we're working on it.
A lot.
Yes.
So I found out today, for the first time, that it looks to be 100% in precinct 3. That's my precinct.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I like it, Jeff.
Yeah. So and it is close. It is close to Loop 313 and County Road 313, which I have many friends in both of those areas. And so, I'm concerned on several things. I'm also very concerned about the numbers and the abatement. I had talked with Alexa last night when I was laying in bed. She's a good friend of mine.
That's way too much
Yeah.
Wow.
AWS generated approximately $390 million a day, and breaks down to roughly $16 million an hour. So that was Alexa, so it's got to be true, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I struggle with that, and it's not, I mean, the bottom line is it is more of a 60-40 split. It's not, even though it's 90% here in the contract, that's what it actually equates to. So as far as the water goes, I'm also very concerned about our resources, as most people that know me have already heard many times. We have to look at not just what you're using and what you potentially could be using moving over to Hood, but it's the cumulative. There's 6 or so power plants that have gone through the TCEQ and data centers that have gone through the TCEQ process. They're going to be draining our water table, period. So, I mean, when all our water's gone, our land is worth nothing. We'll all probably be moving because companies that make $16 million an hour can afford to have water brought in, and as much as we're making, we can't do that. So, something that that we need to keep in mind. I still don't know exactly how much of the power of the 1,200 megawatts that's contracted that you guys will be using, and I have still way more questions than answers at this point, and they're still rolling in. And you got these to me yesterday, correct? In all fairness.
Yep.
So been 2 18-hour days back to back. So trying to get through some of this and be prepared for today. There's a lot of questions, I mean, that the citizens brought up about a remediation plan. I know you talked about the impact contributions if there are problems with the roads. I haven't read that in the contract. Was it in the contract, Judge?
That's above and beyond. That's outside emergency management services, the school, the roads.
Well, just to reference it so it doesn't get lost.
What they did in Mississippi, they have done that.
So what we'll end up doing is a traffic study, and we'll look at what needs to be done on the roads that are connecting to our facility, what needs to be done on the property that we're leasing, and then if we need to come up with something where there's a joint agreement, it'll be through our land development committee. So
in your precinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yes.
But here's the thing, it's also going to affect, because you're going to be coming down 144 and 56, it's going to be affecting Hood County too.
Totally. So
it's going to be, we're making decisions for our neighbors as well. So, and when I was in court with them, I told them that they need to be good neighbors with us, and need to be reciprocal. We have to do that with them, right?
Sure.
So, as far as, legal and the contracts and whatnot, I mean, we can't compete. If anything came down legally and things went sideways, as sadly they have with Vistra at one point.
Been down that road.
So if things go sideways, we don't have a chance, is the truth of the matter, and unless we get a...
They told me that about Vistra too.
Yeah, well, and if we're a week away from going bankrupt with the Vistra situation. We talked about that yesterday. So
it's close.
Let me see the road. I didn't see any watershed studies or testing in the contracts. Let's see.
Dead, Eddie?
Just bad. And something, knowing that water has come up with several of the citizens here, and it's a big deal for me. I don't know why that can't be a part of our contract, why we can't have you guys invest in our water infrastructure.
So it's interesting that you say that. Okay. So yesterday, the judge actually connected me with Kevin. Kevin, yes, thank you.
Director.
And so we have started talking to him about not only servicing us instead of potentially drilling wells, but I can tell you that if there, and I told Kevin this yesterday, you can verify with him, I did tell him if there's infrastructure upgrades that you need and they will be, impacting our project, near our project, adjacent to our project, bring them up to our team. So if you, so I did talk to him about that yesterday.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's good to know. Again,
Yes.
I feel like we're rushing, and I'm supposed to be making this decision, and I'm a consumer of information. I've been given another couple stacks of paper here today, and a completed, finished contract, and I think the prudent thing to do for the court and for the citizens is to table this matter, and to give us. You're not going anywhere. You're not packing up and leaving. You're building your switch. You're building your switch there right now at the plant. Is that correct?
Yes. Well,
okay. So you're not going
no,
anywhere.
but
No, wait a minute, give her 10
so
minutes.
here's the thing. This is the first piece of the puzzle of this particular project. So when we look at bringing a project online, we have to make the business case for how much we're going to invest in a particular area, how many buildings we're going to put in. That's why you don't have a site plan. This is phase one. We need to be able to know. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about how much money we have, but different projects cost different amounts, right? So when we're looking at the ability to build out the entire project, this is part of phase one. So the decision that the court makes today will be able to inform us on how we're going to be able to move forward, how big the project's going to be, what we're going to be able to invest, and so on. So I know that the comment has been that things have changed, but if you remember, we originally were not looking at coming here. When I came and talked to the court.
We were your child at the dance.
No. It just ended up being that when we started engaging with you all, we found you all to be very reasonable and folks that we were frankly interested in working with. And I think over the course of the last several months, as we have had a little bit more time to communicate with one another, and you all learn about our company and us learn about you, I think that we have been able to see that there's some real benefits, I think, to the Somervell community that we can potentially bring to the table. So having an investment, being able to make an upfront commitment to the company, and then us commit to you is part of phase one. And from there, there are going to be changes that are going to happen. We are going to go out and do drilling and to see, how far down rock goes, where rock is, all of those different things. And it's going to change the layout of the buildings that we have. I've told you that since day one. Originally, there was no way for us to have the water company service us, so we hadn't spoken to them. We found out with moving here, there is that opportunity. So a lot of things are going to continue to change.
Only for potable water,
Yes,
folks,
yeah.
not for cooling.
Yeah, so
Only for restrooms and drinking and break areas.
yeah. So a lot of things are going to continue to change as we continue to do due diligence. But this is basically, it's the same thing as buying a house. Can you afford to buy this house? Can you afford to make this purchase? Can you afford to make this investment? So that's really what we're doing here today.
I get that, but again, I have received, I'm a consumer of information and facts.
Sure.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I received a lot of these today and yesterday. And so, I've been asking for this, I've been asking for these two pieces of paper for months from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it last night.
Because we had not done the survey prior, but.
Okay, again.
Yeah.
Again.
But Commissioner Jocelyn,
Things are being rushed.
have I not provided you with every single piece of information that you have asked for at some point or another along the way?
No, you have not.
Well, I would disagree with
Yeah.
that. I have returned your
Okay,
phone calls and
then tell me
emails
this.
and yes.
We were asked earlier about gallons of water.
Mm-hmm.
And I've asked you about water usage, and here's what you told me.
Mm-hmm.
You said 1.8% of Vistra. You said go to Vistra and get those numbers, and felt like I was dealing with a bit of a riddle, but I did it. I went to Vistra and I asked two members here yesterday in a truck about those numbers. I didn't get those numbers, so I can't even do the math on it. And there's far too many questions and far too little answers in this particular situation. And have you gotten me most of the information? You have, but you said all. Okay, you haven't given me all the information, And there's still a lot of questions out here in this audience. And I don't answer to you, ma'am. I answer to these people.
Oh, sir, I completely understand that. Yes, I just wanted to make it clear for people who have not engaged prior.
If they don't have the
Yeah.
answers, AWS or Google or Meta or anybody else, I don't care. You know, because I don't work for you, I work for these guys. So I still need more information, and I feel very confident that these guys still need it. Raise your hand if you feel like you need a little more information. It's pretty clear.
Chip, this is how I feel. Our house is not on fire. We don't have to do it right now. And I think we do need more information. I think it'd be a wise motion to table this. I think it'd be a wise motion to talk to Hood County, why they rejected or looked at their agreement. Listen to those commissioners, talk to them and see what they said to them. We're all in one group, all three counties. We're not on fire, we don't have to do it right now. So I really say table it.
Are you telling me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You don't know me, but can I just add that if we're going to seek more information, could we perhaps have a hearing after business hours? So some people who are at work right now can come see it?
The transparency here has been very vague for the public's consumption. And being quick to rush to judgment and to have a sense that this is a do or die today. If you don't do this, then that's very unfair of
They've
you.
never told us
That's
that.
what I-
They've never told us
I
that.
didn't say they said
Yeah,
that. It's a sense that I feel with the comment she replied back to Chip Jocelyn, that this is a do or die.
There are.
And I know that's not your words.
No,
don't
it is not.
misunderstand me, but the lack of transparency is just totally unacceptable for this court who represents all of us.
All right, Chip, are you done with your presentation? Or
That's
you have
all I
anything
have,
else you'd like to say?
Thank you very much, that's all I have.
You bet.
Thank you, Andrea.
All right,
Thank
you
you.
bet. Trey? Sure. Before we call for a vote, you go ahead.
Yes, sorry, in looking at these contracts, just so the general public knows, the contract is solid. I mean, if you guys decide to go with it, we're run it by 3 different civil attorneys. And just to Commissioner Johnson's comment, we get crushed legally, we wouldn't. Between Martin and myself and Grant Blaze, we're gonna have more trial experience than bringing in 100 attorneys, whether it's Vista or Amazon, and they're gonna have to come to our backyard. So, from what I've got from Andrea, I work with her well. I think she's been honest and upfront with us about everything. But it's not a situation where if you guys decide to do this and they don't like it, they're just gonna come in here and crush us with 100 attorneys. They're gonna have to come to our backyard, and we fought these battles in front of juries way more than their guys have, so.
Trey, could you
we'll be
simply
fine.
answer if they don't adhere to the agreement? So let's just use the 65 decibels as an example. They find that it's more profitable for them to run at 85 decibels. I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen, I'm just trying to do a scenario that many people may be familiar with. If that happens, and they go, you know what, we're running at 85, what's at our disposal, what happens then?
Yeah, so at our disposal right now would be to not give them the rebate back for the contract.
Okay, so they keep
Yes.
running at 85.
Then-
And they make more money, again, example, not saying, I'm not saying you're gonna do that.
Sure.
I'm excited to sit down and talk with you.
Sure, absolutely.
I feel much more hopeful today than I did yesterday.
Yeah.
To be fair. But I think that the distinction is, there remains concern around, if we get in an agreement, the whole reason we should give a rebate. I think there's two, and one of them is you guys, I'm so rude, I'm sorry. One of them is super smart. To be able to get the money outside of ad valorem is actually a great, I can see it as a great benefit to us because it takes away the uncertainty of what the heck is happening with property tax, and when something happens with that, what happens here? So I see this, them paying taxes and then us giving them some money back and then them giving us a chunk payment different. I actually see that as a very smart way to safeguard us from the state making the terrible decisions that the state makes time and time again. I'm also against having state taxes, property taxes, but to the point we don't know what replaces it. So I see that as a great benefit. The other great benefit is if we put in parameters that safeguard us, literally our security, be it our electrical security, our water security, our sound pollution, which is harming people in Hood County right now, and they are sick because of it. It's real. So having some say-so over that makes an economic development agreement make sense because it gives us some means of protecting citizens. The problem is if it's simply connected to a tax to dollars, then there truly are no teeth. We're gumming at it, right? And so That's where, as sound as this agreement may be, it's a sound agreement relative to, are we gonna give them money or not? But is it a sound agreement to, do they have to do it or else they can't operate? That seems to be the gap that I really feel like if we could take this information that's been shared, because again, I actually feel better now. The poor judge had to hear me for 30 minutes this morning. I feel a little better about it now than I did just a few hours ago, with the exception that we're still being asked to trust somebody in an industry that has recently proven to be untrustworthy. So what can we do with this contract to shore it up in a way that it gives everybody here a little more peace of mind, that we aren't just being asked to hope they stick to it, and if not, they don't get the money? That's
Yes, no, I
my
gotcha.
ask. Is that even legal? Is that a possibility?
No, and I don't
That they
think
do it, not that we require
I don't
it.
think it is, and I think the problem here is the legislature is not giving the counties the power to regulate what goes on.
But that's what I mean, is, so you'll hear me say, when I was on council, many of you heard me say, the legal requirement is the bare minimum threshold. You damn sure better follow the law. That's no doubt. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing we can ask of you. So we can say, we're gonna make sure you follow the law. We would like you to act ethically, morally, considerately, whatever other adverb, adjective, whatever you want to put in there.
You didn't
And
use
so
near
that's
all of
my
it you used
question.
this morning.
Yeah. I use.
You've been very respectful.
I use them. And so I'm saying that I know that we can't legally require it. And that's the conundrum that we're in, and we're trying to use this as a means to try to
circumvent.
Yeah, to try to just put some guardrails and some
Yeah.
safety rails in place. I get it, but it's kind of like, they're not guardrails, they're like those little zip lines at the bank. And they can very easily just go, boop, never mind, and walk through the line as they
Yeah.
want.
So-
And I want to trust y'all.
Sure, no, I understand. And if I can just maybe add on, so I'm taking my AWS hat off and putting on my economic development hat. So as a county, and I worked for El Paso County for a few years as well, I know that it is frustrating that counties don't have the authority to enforce certain things. So I can tell you the state of Texas, that their guidelines around sound are 85 decibels. So that being said, the reason why we threw in 65 is because both Glen Rose and Granbury have a 65 decibel sound limitation. And so most places, Texas aside, that we work in across the country, the municipality and the county government are able to dictate to us what those sound requirements are. So we generally make it a practice to operate much, much lower than that. But because, I mean, we've had some instances where people have shown up at our property line and, tried to do very interesting things with sound in a highway right next door. So you can imagine, sometimes we're the target of nefarious actors as well. People like to file lawsuits and do all sorts of fun things. But that being said, we took the nearest municipality and we took their guidelines, and that's how we put that into that agreement.
Which I get, but do recall that with sound particularly,
Sure.
OSHA's guidelines are specific to when do employees have to wear hearing protection for
Yes.
certain hours of exposure. And OSHA doesn't even have a regulation for 24 hours of exposure, right? Because nobody works for 24 hours. And so even 65, to Pam's point early, is entirely too high.
Sure.
Because if you live in an area where it's going to be going 24/7, I will remind you that most tribunals in the entire world talk about lack of sleep as a form of torture. And so if it is high enough that folks can't sleep, it's truly, now granted, I understand that there may be some variation. I'm just saying safeguarding and protection is necessary. And these particular kinds of businesses that operate 24/7 are anomalies. So we can't say, for instance, Whiskey Woods, you can't exceed 65 degrees. Well, 65 decibels, Whiskey Woods isn't operating 24/7.
Sure.
But as a city, we've set that as a standard for a standard operating procedure for a standard business.
Sure.
You guys are a little different, so we gotta tweak it. And I hope that it
I
sounds
can-
like you're willing to work with it.
Well, I can tell you that having been on Vistra's property and having toured the Vistra plant, we are night and day different when it comes to sound. So for those of you who live anywhere near the plant, I was shocked, frankly, at how loud the plant was. So if you're living next to the plant and it's not bothering you, I can guarantee you that our facilities are not going to bother you.
And so I had to jump up and say, because I want to validate it's a solid contract for what it is.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Which is, it's
Exactly.
a solid contract to ensure that we can either give them money or not give them money. There really should be an opportunity to approach them and say, would you be willing to? You can't make them. They can build tomorrow and suck it up, Buttercup, we gotta deal with it. But as a good partner, and if this is the way that they operate, which is distinct and different from what these new guys are doing, amen, thank God, let's get it in writing.
I think Chip has one more
Yeah,
thing before we come back to the
just
court.
one thing. Trey, I can see some anger in your eyes. I'm not saying that their attorneys would crush you in court.
No, I got
I'm
it.
saying their resources.
Yes.
We have two, they have thousands.
Yes,
And
no,
so
no, yeah.
they're going to outspend this. It had nothing to do with talent.
Yeah, I know, I was just
At
bringing
all.
that, yeah, sorry, and I didn't think you were, I wasn't taking it like that,
Okay.
Chip, I was just
Okay.
making sure that, I mean, we can, if this agreement is violated, we end up in court on it,
Yeah.
it's solid, they can bring who they want, I think we win. You know, no guarantees, you got 12 people in jury box, you don't know, but it may take 4 years and
Judge, I
they'll
think-
spend
Yeah.
100 times, but.
Can I
And
ask
taxpayer
a
money.
Mr.
question?
Talavera has a question.
So basically, you're wanting to vote on abatement without even really
Rebate.
knowing the exact size of what they're gonna build.
So,
Well, we know, I know sketchy, some material.
Well, sketchy ain't
Yeah,
exact.
so, yeah.
So it's
That's
a-
what I said. I want more information, you know,
Well, I think,
I want a
opinion.
rough site plan, you know, I know you guys won't know on some of it, but you have to have some kind of idea. You guys have the best engineers, you employ some of the best people, like you, Andrea, you employ some of the best people on earth.
Thank you.
So, you know, you can't tell me that this is the best I can get from you.
So what I can tell you is about the value of each one of our buildings and that we are going to try and build enough buildings to take care of the full 1.2 gigawatts that Vistra has been able to contract us with. If we can make the business case here to make it make sense for the company, to make the full investment, then we will be building somewhere, and I know that it's not an ideal thing to say, somewhere between 10 to 18 buildings, depending on how we can Tetris it on the site. So.
So she's at 10. So, there you go.
All right, I think
So,
Richard has a
Just
question.
for the public, so the IA center that we went to go see.
Sure.
That's modeled,
Mhm.
like the one that's gonna be
Mhm.
supposedly here.
I better speak up, Richard. I bet they can't hear you.
What is the decimal, what is the sound decimals that plant was putting out?
So I don't know. My assumption, since you and I couldn't hear it, was that it was probably about 45.
I know we were talking,
Yeah.
we were talking to each other on the road when the car went by. And
Sure.
the car was louder, but I was just wanting to know.
Yeah.
What it had been measured.
Yeah, I'm sure my legal would be like, well, it depends on if it's at the fence or right in front of the building or, you know, all those different things. But the fact that you and I were talking and we couldn't hear it over it, an average conversation is 45 decibels. So if that helps with perspective.
And if y'all don't mind, after we adjourn here today, if y'all will sort of take the conversation to the hallway and to the district courtroom, because there's a construction meeting that was supposed to be in here at 10:30 pertaining to the annex and the golf course. So, but I'm not rushing you. I'm just saying if you will vacate this so McKinstry can come in.
And sorry, Dee, I don't think I ever finished answering your question. So the only teeth that a county has are really in agreements like this to try to get them to agree, and the penalty being then not giving them the rebate, the way the laws are written.
Right.
But you're right, if they don't go by it, all we can do is withhold giving them the rebate back.
But I guess my question is, could they opt to say, I know we're not required to, but we're going to choose to include this in, so the county can't make them, but can they say, we will choose to put this in the contract to give you ease of mind that we're actually gonna do what we say?
Yes, and actually the 65 decibels and some of those things are what they came up with. They said, here's what we're coming to the table with.
No, I mean, the choice, what I mean is, we won't function otherwise. That's the
Yes.
that's the additive that I know we can't say. We can't say, if you exceed this, we're shutting you down. We can't do
We have no
it.
authority.
Sorry, that's what it is. But can they say, if we don't do this, you can shut us down?
I guess they could, but I don't think they would ever agree to that.
I was gonna say, I'm not an AWS attorney, but I mean, to your point, I doubt that. I think,
I don't
yeah.
think they would ever agree to that, and honestly, even if they would just file injunctions to keep running, we'd be in lawsuits for the next
And
20
that's what I
years.
mean, money where your
Well-
mouth is. If you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do, then you have no problem putting in writing that you're gonna do it, because you're gonna do it.
I think AWS would much rather pay the me's of the world and the folks from our in communities team and our workforce team than attorneys to have, frankly, a negative relationship with the community. I mean, I was joking earlier about having Amazon Prime members here in the audience, but I can guarantee some of you are Amazon Prime members. And so when we look at, our benefit to going into a community and tarnishing our name, I mean, that's not our goal.
All right, everybody, we'll bring it back to the court. And like I said, I'm not rushing you, but if you don't mind, after we adjourn, if you'll move to the hallways and the main district courtroom for further discussion, but the court won't be involved. I'm surprised my fire chief hadn't already been in here, but.
One last legal question. Article 5, termination of this contract. Kent, 513, and this contract did change a little bit from the one I had. Termination of this contract by written notice by the company, AWS, for any reason or no reason. But we don't have that. We don't have, it doesn't say, we can agree to them to get rid of this, but 513 says that the company can terminate this for any reason or no reason.
That was in the other contract I gave you.
Yeah, it was. It's just a little different.
Okay, I guess it was in the other ones, but we do have termination.
Which basically means if they decide to pull out, then they're done, but if they stay and they terminate the agreement, then they start paying the full amount of taxes.
It goes on tax rolls at 100%, and Mr. Abbott and legislators see what they can take away from you. I need to quit badmouthing in the public.
No, you don't.
But anyhow, all right, well, let's take it back to the court. I made the motion. Y'all can all criticize me on Facebook later today, which will be great. I have a motion by, I have a second by Wade. We've had much discussion and.
No opportunity to table, Judge? Sorry to interrupt.
No, because I have to take the vote because I have a motion and a second, and if it fails, then we can decide what we want to do at that time, okay? If it doesn't fail, then we move forward with the agreement and we go from there. And we don't know how that's going to do till here in about 30 seconds. All right. Have you got your cameras rolling? Everything's good to go? You ready? All right. I made the motion. Wade Bush made the second. All in favor of said motion, that's myself, Wade, and Jeff Harris. All opposed, that is Richard Talavera and Chip Jocelyn. And like I said, I'm going to make the motion to adjourn so we can clear this courtroom and bring McKinstry in so they can do their construction meeting. It's not on Amazon, it's on this building and the golf course. Thank all y'all. All right, we have a second Chip to adjourn. All in favor? That is 5-4 at 11:54.